The final part of the In Search of Darkness trilogy is now available to purchase. The last in the series explores the B-movie horror films that went straight to home video and littered VHS rental stores back in the 80s. In Search of Darkness 3 includes 39 new interviews, plus many of the horror stars from parts 1 and 2 will be returning. You can grab part 3 by itself, or you can purchase the entire trilogy in a box set, which runs for over 14 hours. It's not just straight-to-video movies that will be covered. It will also include cult classics and guilty pleasure features such as Jaws: The Revenge, Manhunter, Critters, Puppet Master, Class of Nukem High, and one of my personal favourites, The Hitcher. Follow the link below to grab your copy, as it's only available until midnight on Halloween. The final part in the new Halloween trilogy, Halloween Ends, is now out in cinemas, having been delayed due to production issues surrounding the pandemic, with a goal to shoot Halloween Kills and Ends back to back. But it was decided the schedule would be too intense, and filming on the final film would commence in January of this year, and would wrap in late February. An early test screening took place and additional reshoots were needed, which were made in March to tweak the movie despite the film being picture locked. Carpenter described the film as a departure from the previous entries in David Gordon Green's trilogy. Fans of the Halloween series were excited to see how this series would officially end, despite Part 2 being poorly received by the critics and the fans, compared to the strong outing of the 2018 film. With it now out and the press getting an early chance to see it a week before its release, the reviews have not been good. A number of the critics called it a sloppy movie, poorly executed, rushed, and feels very different compared to the previous entries, resulting in a film that is barely a Halloween movie, though some were positive, saying it was a pleasant surprise, as the story took a different direction, saying it was less frantic and more intimate than its predecessor. As highlighted, the story takes a different direction than what was set out in Part 2. The film opens in 2019 with a young lad called Corey, who is asked to babysit, and the kid plays a prank on him, which leads to the kid being accidentally killed. Jumping 3 years later, Corey has been cleared of manslaughter and is working at his uncle's junkyard, but a lot of the people in Haddonfield think he's guilty. Michael Myers hasn't been seen in 4 years, and Laurie has started a new life, purchased a new home, and is now living with her granddaughter and writing her memoirs. Corey, on his way home from work, is bullied by a bunch of high school bozos, and Laurie comes to his aid and sympathises with his situation. Laurie takes him to the doctor's office where Allison works. Allison and Corey strike up a friendship and then a relationship. After leaving a party, Corey is thrown off a bridge by the bullies he encountered earlier, and then dragged into the sewers by an unknown figure. He wakes up in the sewers and is confronted by Michael, who has been living in the sewers ever since his disappearance. He grabs Corey by the throat, but Michael unexpectedly lets him go. Corey begins to fall down a dark path mentally and sees Michael as an inspiration, as he decides to take revenge on those who bullied him. I was honestly looking forward to seeing Halloween Ends. Part 2 was pretty crap, but entertaining crap. Again, another horror film with stupid people doing stupid things, and Michael Myers has a pretty easy job killing his victims as he goes about doing what he does best. The people of Haddonfield are so dumb, and Halloween Kills highlights that wonderfully. It's so funny seeing a woman turn up at the end with an iron and expecting this will be able to kill him. I was like many a bit let down by where this series was going, but I wanted to see how it ended. But sadly for me, Halloween Ends was not great, not unwatchable, but didn't deliver at all on what is the finale of this new trilogy. With the first two being so tied together, with the events taking place over a couple of days, I thought the final part of the series would follow suit in a similar fashion, but it ends up being really weird. I suppose like Season of the Witch, which takes a major turn as Michael Myers was dead. They attempted to do something else and it bombed and they went back to formula. So perhaps the filmmakers of Halloween Ends thought they would follow suit, but not to the extreme, but surprise audiences with a change of pace. And what you end up with is a film that tries to deal with the idea that you are either born evil or you are turned evil. In the case of Corey, he starts out like a nice and ordinary young adult and falls down a dark path due to the abuse of those in the town of Haddonfield, and he wants to see the town and those in it burn and takes on Myers' persona. But he doesn't have the ability to take on the physical abuse like Michael does. Michael gets stabbed and shot etc, but still lives, like he is an unstoppable demon. Despite Corey having the rage to kill those who bullied him, he is a bit clumsy along the way. The change of direction does make for a strange viewing experience. I suppose you could applaud them for doing something different. I think some fans may like this approach, but it seems so strange for the writers and director to switch things up so late into the game. This type of story could have easily been executed in part 2, with a mix of the angry mob mentality thrown in. Myers doesn't really have much screen time, popping up about 40 minutes into the film. I sat there looking at my watch a number of times as it was moving at this lethargic pace. I just wasn't invested in this new story. The Corey storyline dominates 2/3 of the film. What you've come to see is only in the last 15 minutes or so of the movie. Totally bizarre twist for this final outing. As Corey gets very close to Allison, Laurie sees what's happening to him and sees similar traits to Michael Myers. She warns him to stay away. So Corey declares, well, if I can't have Allison, no one can. Which suggests he will try and kill her, but he doesn't. He instead tries to commit suicide, which makes his whole statement about no one having Allison completely pointless. For those who love some nasty death scenes, which is the highlight of these slasher movies, Halloween Ends doesn't really have that many. They do granted have some gross moments that do work a treat, but the lighting in the film is a bit of an issue for me. Michael Simmons, who photographed Halloween and Kills, brought a great visual style that did a superb job mimicking Dean Cundy's photography for the flashback scenes and gave the new films a similar visual colour palette, but Halloween Ends has a very muddy look to it, with the majority of the action/horror scenes being way too dark. Either this is designed to match the tone of the film, or the choice of how it was graded in the final edit has resulted in a murky, dark film that makes it difficult to see what's going on during the important moments. The final battle, for example, between Myers and Laurie is so underlit you can't tell what's going on for the most part. It makes the big punch-up underwhelming, and with it taking place in a small kitchen, it lacks imagination. I just get the feeling the director David Gordon Green is now bored of making these films, having directed 3 in such a short space of time, and is now apparently working on a remake of The Exorcist, which won't please Mark Kermode, that's for sure. Again, John Carpenter, his son Cody and Daniel Davis provide the score. Again, Carpenter and his team bring back the great synth score with slashings of electric guitar cues to spice it up. It sounds just like how Carpenter would have composed his scores back in the 1980s, though this time the score has less of the big stabs and stings of classic horror cues. It's more atmospheric and eerie with its style to reflect Corey's journey into a killer. The best part of the score is a track called Cherry Blossoms that is utilised for the friendship of Laurie and Frank Hawkins. If you love Carpenter's style like I do, it's a score worth grabbing. But if someone said, oh, which piece of music is from which film, I'd be hard pressed to know, as the music for the entire trilogy sort of blends into one. And I don't think one of them stands out from the others to be the single best score of the bunch, making it tough to compare them all. But I'm sure collectors will want it either way. As it's the final part of the trilogy, and with it being Jamie Lee Curtis's final face-off against Myers, it is a big letdown. Especially with how well this new series started out only a few years ago. Halloween Ends is not unwatchable or bad filmmaking. I wouldn't compare this to the lazy horror sequels during the 80s, which did nothing new to spice up the genre. It's just so weird they went out with this direction. It feels so disconnected to the other 2 films. Yes, you have returning characters, but I feel like it could stand on its own, and by itself, it delivers a very mediocre Halloween film that I don't think will satisfy even the hardcore fans of the franchise, who will feel it's missing a lot to make it a worthwhile finale to Laurie Strode's storyline and her battle with Michael Myers. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and click the bell to be notified of my latest retrospectives and reviews. Big thanks to my patrons for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain early access to my content and exclusive videos, then follow the link below.